What's up again, everybody? Well, I'm going to get right into it. After I finished the last video that I just made about the Kratom business and everything, I realized that I wasn't finished. I have a lot to say about the corruption in the pharmaceutical industry, within the way that the FDA is in the pocket of these large businesses, agriculture and large agribusiness, fucking Monsanto. And after I thought about it for a minute, it reminded me of a song that I wrote a few years ago. It was called Fuck You Monsanto, and it was an acoustic guitar song. I actually uploaded the video onto YouTube, and I thought maybe I'll check that out and re-upload it. The song was horrible. I went back and found it on my computer. I was like, never mind. But anyhow, I started thinking about this situation that we're in regarding, people being upset about the way that our businesses are being targeted by large companies when they want to make a profit, or that so many regulations tied up and hurdles to overcome that a small company has really no chance of becoming, say, a new pharmaceutical industry or a new major agribusiness. And this comes down to many different issues, having to do with the economy, which I'm not going to get into here. But I'm mainly focused on the issue that regardless of what happens in business, if a large company is free to do whatever they choose, fine, so be it. When they're making regulations as to what you and I can put in our body, that's when it's time to step up and say bullshit. And it's not something that's new to me, of course. This is something I've thought of for my whole life. Since I was 15 years old and I discovered cannabis, and then I got busted for growing cannabis. And I had a lot of time, on probation and times in jail for just getting a dirty drug test for cannabis. And I've had a lot of time to stew in my resentment for what they put people through when they are nonviolent crimes. A crime that's basically the crime of consuming something that you've chosen to consume. Now, many people might argue that, we've made a decision as a society that drugs are bad, okay? And I would say that's not true either. We haven't. The bullshit that was pulled over, society's eyes, especially during, 1937 when cannabis was made illegal. The whole thing was a big propaganda campaign. And the same thing happened with Nixon's drug war. It was just a big propaganda campaign to fill up the prisons. And the more you start looking at what really is going on, the more you think, okay, you're falling into conspiracy realm. You don't want to go down that road. But the fact is, there are conspiracies out there. The thing is, it's not reptilians or a giant Illuminati group that's, conspiring with their cloaks on. They're individual organizations that are all out for their own best interests and that are willing to step on the people to get there. So, let's discuss why this is such a big problem. And why I was inspired to make this video also was somebody left a comment this morning on an older video of mine, and I was talking about 1994, and he asked, were you talking about the Codex Alimentarius? And I was like, oh, no, actually, but I looked into that. It's an organization that basically decides, what safe levels are of pesticides and whatnot. So instead of me sitting here mumbling and trying to explain it, I'm just going to go ahead and read the screenshot. The Codex Alimentarius Commission is based in Rome and was created in 1963. An international organization jointly run by the Food and Agricultural Organization and the World Health Organization. It has 27 different committees. Codex's published goals are to develop and adopt uniform food standards for its member countries and to promote the free and unhindered international flow of food goods, thereby eliminating trade barriers to food and providing food safety. Biotechnology, pesticides, food additives, and contaminants are some of the issues discussed Codex meetings. So, the next part, this is from another article, how they were talking about how they want to have guidelines and packaging requirements, labeling requirements. Now, this is the issue I want to discuss, of course, is separate from this, but I have to mention the Kratom issue. As many of you know, Philly Kratom, he talks about Kratom quite a bit, and hey, we really appreciate your work, man, if you're out there. He gets more into the specifics of Pennsylvania, what's going on right now in certain states where he can make a difference. And he mentioned how Oregon is deciding they're finally going to regulate Kratom. I live right across the bridge in Vancouver, Washington. And my first thought was, oh shit. they're going to regulate it. What does that mean? And I understand that people want good packaging guidelines. They want to make sure that it's packaged in a sanitary environment. You don't want some guy just sitting in front of the TV, just, in this dirty, stinky house, like throwing Kratom around and letting it sit open. But most people who are Kratom vendors or, distributors are pretty responsible about that. A lot of the contaminants come from the source. And so the point I'm making here is that there are issues with contamination right now, but they're being overblown. The question is, why is Kratom such a big focus right now? Why in the last few days are they all of a sudden saying, oh, no, there were over 100 deaths linked to Kratom? Was it 115 overdoses linked to Kratom out of 27,000, I think? And linked to Kratom merely means that the Kratom was either found in their system, or they had Kratom in their house, or there was some Kratom involved somehow, or somebody said they took Kratom. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody disappeared and they blamed it on Kratom. It's anything and everything that can be blamed on these drugs. And sometimes I have to step back and say, I want to be fair. Is anyone really trying to protect us? Do these people really believe what they're saying? Well, judging by the history of cannabis and how it's been treated, no, I don't believe they know what they're saying. I don't believe they believe what they're saying, anyway. And that they're answering to larger businesses and pharmaceutical industry. It's very disturbing. I'm still working on my book. I'm almost finished. I keep adding these little parts in, but I've mentioned it several times, but I'm writing a book about the pharmaceutical nightmare that we're in. And every time I add something into it, it's, last time it was about not pharmaceuticals themselves, but actually medical implants and medical device industry, which is huge. $1 trillion racket there, making devices that may or may not even work. People getting spinal implants and hip implants that explode and get destroyed in their body, and you think, have these been researched properly? And then you find out, no, they haven't. Then you look into the drug overdose deaths with legal drugs prescribed and taken in the proper amounts. Then you ask yourself, as well as contamination within products that are otherwise supposed to be tested. And the question you ask is, if these organizations are supposed to protect us from contaminants within natural products, how come they can't even weed contaminants and problems out of their own products? The products that the pharmaceutical industries create and are supposed to do the research on. If you knew how little research was actually done on pharmaceuticals before they're put on the market, you might realize that you're the guinea pig a lot of the time. Remember Vioxx? It's not the only drug that was recalled because thousands of people died. There are so many drugs every year that are recalled, and so many lawsuits that I believe the lawsuits are up in the double-digit billions, and these pharmaceutical companies set aside the money. That's anticipated. So, back to the Codex Alimentarius. The question that arises is, who is to determine what a safe level of these toxins and fertilizers are? In other words, if you're answering to large agribusiness and companies like Monsanto, they're not going to take it lying down and say, okay, this company can say that the food we make is toxic. Of course not. They'll lobby and they'll get the regulations changed, the amounts changed. This happens all the time. The supposed safe level of a compound is boosted up because it's found in some fertilizer that you just have to have, and you might think, well, that's business, but that's not business. It's greed. These companies are so big, and they monopolize so badly, our food, that when you step back and ask yourself, wait a minute, what's going on? It's already too late. And there are a lot of corrupt businesses out there, and there's a lot of greed and a lot of bullshit. We can't worry about what every single person is doing if they're selling you a fake Apple, a fake iPhone, or, you're getting ripped off by a mechanic, whatever it might be. These issues can be remedied because these are just bad business practices. But when it deals with the food and our health, this is when we really need to step back and say, hey, our health is being treated as a commodity, and we know that it's not about curing people, it's about keeping them sick. And I hate saying that because I sound like a conspiracy fanatic there. But what I mean by that is that most of the pharmaceuticals out there are designed to maintain a level instead of most of the efforts that are put out are to not to cure a disease as much as to find a medication that can help that disease. The longer a patient stays alive, the more money there is, and that's just how it is. We see waste all over in the industry. They throw away medications that could be used for other people. It becomes illegal for people to, like, even a sealed bottle or, $100,000 treatment, will have to be tossed because you can't just give it away to somebody who's poor. No, they have to figure out their own way to get it because that's profit. And once again, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, if the people want to invent these things and be, selfish and greedy and charge ridiculous amounts, that's also something that is a choice on their part. And the people should stand up against it. But the real problem is when they lobby against natural herbs, remedies, things that have been used for thousands of years. And especially when it's pretty transparent when you look at what happened over in Europe. These organizations tried to make vitamins illegal on the premise that people can overdose on these vitamins. Therefore, we want to only give you a prescription for vitamin C if you need it. And needless to say, when they tried this in the U.S. in 1994, which is what I was originally talking about, the herbal alliances and various groups wouldn't stand for it. They knew what would happen. If we start to regulate natural products, then we're cutting people off from their literally God-given right. Whether you're religious or not, that's not the point. I mean that we're here on this planet, we're part of this planet. If anything, there should be a human right to access the things on this planet that can benefit us, even if others don't believe they might benefit us. It's a personal choice to look at things and say, well, I think this might benefit me. And if it doesn't, then so be it. We make mistakes all the time. And the thing is, if the people that say they're protecting us were really trying to, then we wouldn't have so many pharmaceutical deaths from legal pharmaceuticals. You want to talk about 100 kratom deaths? Even if that was true, which it's not at all, that doesn't even compare to the 100,000 opioid deaths in the last 2 years from legally prescribed opiates. And even up to the very peak of the crisis, there were lobbyists in D.C., trying to get doctors to prescribe more. I do have a few ideas and solutions to this. I don't like to just complain. I believe that, doctors should not be able to receive compensation from pharmaceutical companies at all. But that's not going to stop it. It's like when you see a drug commercial and it says, talk to your doctor. Tell your doctor about it. Not ask your doctor, but tell your doctor about this drug. Tell your doctor to research this drug. And I've been to the doctor a few times in my life, not much. But the speed with which they push you through and the lack of what they actually know, even if you tell them what you think you have ahead of time, they don't know. It's just a chart. You're just a number to a lot of them. And a lot of us are stuck without insurance anyway, like myself. So, if I choose a natural route, then I have to look and say, oh, well, this thing is being criminalized in certain states. This plant is being, basically treated like a hardcore drug. And you have to know who to trust and who to believe. And unfortunately, people want to believe authority. And I say question authority. I never trust authority. So far, I haven't found any authority in the government that really knows what the fuck they're talking about. So very few people out there, really... I just hope that in the future, there's a way to overcome this kind of bullshit. That the people could really have a voice. But part of me says that everything just has to fall apart. We have to just almost start over because there is such a tight grip on people's minds that I don't know how we're ever going to break free from it. But let's say we all do. Is it really going to make a difference? Can we really stand up for what we believe and make a difference, without being stepped on by the people who have trillions of dollars? So, I don't know. I guess that's just my complaining. And to let you know what the Codex Alimentarius is, many of these groups, the World Health Organization and the FDA, the DEA, they run on money. They run on financing. They run on funding. Without that funding, they disappear, and they want to keep their jobs. And so really ask yourself, when somebody's telling you something, what is the basis for this, and what type of propaganda are we being fed today? And yeah, that's about all I got. Just wanted to share those thoughts. It's kind of bullshit. It pisses me off, but I try to keep a calm demeanor about it because there's not a lot I can do except speak out, which I'm doing. So, and like I said, I've tried to kind of take the peaceful route for so long. It's really hard to do. I still remain calm and collected. I want to be stoic. I want to be able to process things clearly, because if we're angry, our minds aren't working. Your body starts to stress, produce cortisol, you get into fight or flight, and you can't think straight. If you want to think straight, you can't be angry. But sometimes if you're not angry, you can't take action. There's the conundrum. Find the medium. Talk to y'all later.